Glover.
Independence. It occurred to me a moment ago when Gary made reference to something that Gene McCarthy once said. He said the Republicans have a lot of good people. They just never nominate them for the presidency. In any event, I'm pleased that this group is trying to introduce an important issue that is worth considering and talking about. In the 1992 presidential election, I don't think this country can afford another election like the one we had in 1988, in which George Bush's handlers had him telling the country that the three central threats to America were Willie Horton, the ACLU, and Governor Dukakis' veto of an unconstitutional bill to make the Pledge of Allegiance compulsory. In Massachusetts, none of those issues have been referred to since the campaign, for the simple reason that no one of them did represent a fundamental threat to the people of America. There's something about these presidential campaigns that I've noticed that these strategists frequently come up with three evils. It was Willie Horton, the ACLU, and the Pledge of Allegiance last time, but in the first presidential campaign in which I played an active role in 1952, the three evils were crime, Korea, and corruption. I think they even spelled Korea with a C to keep the alliteration intact. When I ran, it was acid, amnesty, and abortion. I was known as the AAA candidate. Thinking back on the rather modest, and I would say conservative positions that got that label hung on me, it's almost humorous if it weren't so tragic. My position on amnesty, for whatever that's worth 20 years later, was that once the war was ended, we should have a general amnesty both for the people that got us into that war and those that had the courage to oppose it. On abortion, certainly not the most advanced position in the world. That there was lobbying at that time for an amendment to outlaw abortion. I said, let's stick with what we now have and let the states deal with the abortion question. And then on acid, I boldly suggested that maybe in the case of marijuana, the penalty should be treated as a misdemeanor rather than a felony. Hardly the most advanced and radical position on those three issues, but enough to raise the cry that I was a threat to all sacred values in the country. I hope we don't have a repeat of that kind of thing in 1992. The Cold War has at long last ended, and I think we all rejoice in that. It doesn't mean that our problems are over, but it does mean that this tragic struggle that has absorbed so much of our treasure over the last nearly half century is now over, and we can begin to address other problems, including the rebuilding of our own country. But it's my own view that this would also be a good time to replace the drug war with something more constructive, more practical, and more workable, more consistent with our system. One of the best efforts in that direction is the work of this group, the Drug Strategy Network, Eric Sterling and others. And there has also come to my attention recently an excellent report by the Washington chapter of Americans for Democratic Action that I find a very humane and constructive approach. Just to quote a couple of lines from that report, the so-called war on drugs has failed and will continue to fail unless we take a dramatically different approach to the drug problem, an approach that treats the problem as a public health issue rather than overwhelmingly as a matter of law enforcement, and that these opening remarks here that my own view is that prevention has to be the number one strategy, the number one priority, and treatment the number two priority, rather than interdiction and incarceration. The facts are that the cure offered in the drug war to date has probably been more harmful and done more damage than the disease it purports to cure. And here he ticked off some of the reasons that is true. Now, on the question of legalization of all drugs in this country, it's a matter of common knowledge that the two drugs doing the most damage to our society are now both legal, tobacco and alcohol, which is one way of suggesting that legalization is not a cure for the problem. Neither is the war on drugs a cure for the problem. The area where we have perhaps made the greatest progress in dealing with drugs is on the one that does the most damage, it's cigarettes. And that has been accomplished not so much by a war on cigarettes, but by a scientifically, medically sound educational program designed to convince the American people that nicotine is bad for your health, that it's a destructive drug that we would do well to get along without. But it's been done without the kind of emphasis that's been made on the war on drugs, where police power has been the central factor. It's been done by the long process of education and information. I think we need to move beyond that on cigarettes and alcohol to the point where, within the limits of what the courts will permit, we ought to outlaw